The Backyard Sports Kids were some of the greatest athletes elementary school had ever seen, dominating across 6 different sports and holding their own against legitimate pro players. But what happened to the crew after they graduated high school? Did Pablo Sanchez grow into a future Hall of Famer? Did Marky Dubois ever start dating Billie Jean Blackwood? And did Reese Worthington ever stop being annoying? Let's find out. Billie Jean Blackwood. After middle school, Blackwood would give up sports to focus on her modeling career. She finally got her big break during her senior year and accomplished her dreams by walking on the runway during Paris Fashion Week. Crazy Legs would continue to model for several years all over the world, but has recently stepped back from that career and is now working as a French teacher at a private school. She is not and has never been dating Marky Dubois. Lisa Crockett. Mad Dog would eventually take her all-around game and no-nonsense demeanor to the sport she was born to play, field hockey. After high school, Crockett would play 4 years at Maryland, winning the Honda Award as a senior. She also played for several years for the United States team before switching to a completely new sport. Mad Dog had spent several years practicing jiu-jitsu to supplement her field hockey training, and she would take the next step in that sport by entering the world of UFC fighting. Over her career, Mad Dog compiled a 10-7 record, and while she never held a belt, she did claim 2 knockouts of the night before hanging up her gloves and getting into coaching. Angela Delvecchio. Sugar Pop pitched for the high school softball team but left sports behind when she headed to college at a state school. She considered going into several fields, but after seeing her brother Tony nearly kill the family's malt shop, she got her business degree and took it over. Since then, she's turned things around and has opened up 2 more restaurants in nearby towns. Tony Delvecchio. Throughout high school, Big T starred as the team's quarterback and received a few offers to play at smaller colleges. Instead, he joined his cousin Vinny the Gooch for several get-rich-quick schemes that never quite worked out. To keep himself afloat, Tony worked at his dad's malt shop but almost ran into the ground after using it as collateral in a bet. As mentioned, his sister would get the shop back on its feet, but Tony needed a few more years before he straightened himself out and became a mechanic at the local bike shop where he still works now. Ronny Dobbs. Once Spud got out of high school, he went straight to the military to get away from his overbearing older sister. He took to the job immediately, eventually becoming a drill sergeant. After years of being ordered around by Sally, now Ronnie's the one barking commands. Sadly, the siblings haven't seen each other in years as Ronnie doesn't want to reopen those old wounds from the playground. Sally Dobbs. The boss married almost immediately out of high school and quickly has several kids, some say to have someone take the place of her younger brother. Sally quickly fell into the stereotypical helicopter parent role, micromanaging her kids' lives down to the very minute. She recently went viral on TikTok after someone posted a video of her being a Karen at a local grocery store. Marky Dubois. After inventing the dab well before it became a national craze, Cootie would lead a simple life working on his family's farm for several years. Then he was contacted by the History Channel to star in a new reality show about frog farmers. He became a national sensation with the show running for 6 seasons. Sadly, even with all that success, Marky still never convinced Billie Jean to give him a chance. Kimmy Eckman. The Candy Monster would eventually ride that wave of sugar to a successful YouTube career alongside her now husband Dante Robinson. The duo jumped in on the mukbang craze on the platform, becoming relatively big stars due to their ability to put away copious amounts of food. As you'd expect, Eckman largely focuses on eating candy, though she's developed a love for cheesesteaks as well. Annie Frazier. One day after high school, Flipper disappeared into the forest and none of the other backyard kids saw her for several years. Recently, she's popped back up, claiming to have spent all that time hiking across the world. Nowadays, she grows and sells medical cannabis for a local store. Jorge Garcia. Jorge stopped hanging out with the backyard kids during high school after his parents sent him to a boarding school. He would eventually get his degree at Harvard and noodled around for a few years working at his father's company. Bonkers then tried to run for a Senate seat, but lost. Jorge took the defeat very hard and got deep into drugs. Thankfully, his good friend Dmitri would eventually pull him out of his downward spiral, and Jorge is doing well living off his sizable inheritance. Gretchen Hasselhoff. Jabberjaws used her gift for gab to enter the podcasting world alongside the Khan brothers. The trio hosts a weekly music show, bringing in guests the brothers met during their days playing in bands. Gretchen also works in marketing during her day job, but hopes to eventually take the podcasting gig full-time. Ricky Johnson. JoJo would continue playing soccer throughout high school, eventually becoming a star center back. He'd then head to Oregon State to play college ball. He continued to play well and was eventually drafted by San Jose in the MLS. After 2 years, he had a nasty knee injury that ended his career early. Ricky would eventually get into coaching back at Oregon State, where he still works today. Kenny Kawaguchi. Kenny became a renaissance man during college. Not only did he spend time playing on the national wheelchair basketball team, but he toured Europe as a DJ and earned a degree in robotics. These days, he's working at a major robotics firm while still DJing on the weekends in the local scene. Vicki Kawaguchi. After years of begging, Vicky's mom finally relented and let the Swan jump into ice skating. She competed at nationals but never made the Olympic team. Eventually, she would become a coach and has been training the next generation of skaters for the last several years. Achmed Khan. Axeman immediately hopped on the road to start touring once he finished high school. While he never became a national name, one of his bands does consistently chart in Norway. These days, he continues to tour and chase the dream while also running a music podcast with his brother and Kimmy. Amir Khan. Styx joined his brother on the road, but knew that he'd never make it as a rocker. Instead, he'd work to become an audio engineer, which is his current profession, though he still hangs out with his brother and Kimmy Eckman every week for their podcast. Amir has been known to come out of retirement and hop on the Styx if Achmed's band needs a drummer for a weekend show, but he's content working his steady job. Luanne Lui. Lulu's love for her teddy bear would eventually lead to her pursuing a zoology degree. She now works at a major national park in the Pacific Northwest, focusing on bear conservation. Lulu was also recently given her own signature bear from the team at Build-A-Bear, recognizing her efforts in the field. Maria Luna. Maria got deep into the pageant circuit during high school and continued into college, working as a pageant coach. Recently, Pinky's helped a few girls make it all the way to the Miss USA competition, which helped her to buy a second pony. Stephanie Morgan. Bubbles was a standout softball player in high school and signed with Oklahoma University for college. There, she helped the team win 2 College World Series titles. She spent a few years playing pro fast pitch, but eventually transitioned to the sports desk. Recently, she's joined the desk of ESPN's Baseball Tonight after several years with MLB Network. Dmitri Petrovich. Pace left for college at age 16 and earned his PhD in mathematics by 24. He would use that intellect to quickly earn a position at a prestigious university. As mentioned, he helped rescue Jorge from a potentially deadly downward spiral. Using Jorge's significant trust fund, he and Dmitri opened a new video game studio together and are currently working on their first release when Dmitri gets a break from his day job. Kiesha Phillips. Flash would skip college and head straight to LA to try to get into the film and TV scene. While she struggled to book gigs, she did eventually get into stand-up, where her natural humor took over. She's currently working as a comedian who tours the country sporadically, still waiting for a big break. Dante Robinson. Stretch used his talents for eating to become a relatively famous YouTuber alongside his wife, Kimmy Eckman. He would continue to improve his ability to stuff his face and become a pro eater. A few years ago, he nearly beat Joey Chestnut at the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest, but fell off the pace toward the end. Pablo Sanchez. The secret weapon signed with Florida State as a 2-sport athlete out of high school. He excelled at both sports, but baseball was his obvious future. That said, the Commanders did draft him in the 3rd round of the NFL following his collegiate career. He'd play both sports at the pro level for 2 seasons before eventually dropping football to focus on his baseball career. He's played for several more seasons at the MLB level and is a 4-time All-Star with over 200 career home runs. Here's hoping he could stay healthy and build on those numbers. Jocinda Smith. MVP was recruited to play college basketball at most major programs. She would eventually sign with Baylor, where she started as a freshman and sophomore. Unfortunately, a bad injury kept her from playing during her junior season. She made it back on the court as a senior, but had obviously lost a step. That said, her sharp shooting from deep was still good enough to get her drafted to the WNBA, where she played for 4 seasons before retiring and going to coaching at the high school level. Ernie Steele. Like Kiesha, Big Easy left town to try and strike it big in comedy after high school. However, he went to New York City. Sadly, Ernie had no success with his work and hasn't been heard from since. Mikey Thomas. Nugget stayed at home following high school and took up a position working at Taco Bell. He continues to work there to this day, never moving up the chain and seemingly content with his simple life. Ashley and Sidney Weber. The Weber twins were pushed to continue playing tennis into the pro ranks. They were able to make some waves as doubles players, but Ashley would eventually drop off due to burnout and move to Australia to get away from her father. Sidney continued to play, but wasn't nearly as good without her sister. Eventually, the twins would reunite in Australia, where they've tried to live a quiet life free from their father's influence. Pete Wheeler. Petey was signed by Alabama to play kick returner for the Crimson Tide. He made the All-American team and met the president before graduating. Unfortunately, he went undrafted and Pete decided to join the military. While there, Petey made a friend who agreed to go into the restaurant business with him. Sadly, that friend died in combat, but Pete was awarded the Medal of Honor for saving several other members of the duo's platoon, including their lieutenant. While recovering, Pete became very good at ping pong and played at the national level. He also met the love of his life, but outside of one night, she spurned his advances. After making money selling ping pong paddles, he'd open up a restaurant and send money to his fallen comrade's family after it was a success. He got depressed after being turned down again by that girl and started running across the US. Eventually, the girl would contact him and tell him that she had given birth to his son, but was dying from an incurable disease. Pete has since become the best father he can to his young boy. Reese Worthington. The rest of the Backyard Kids quickly fell out of touch with Reese and were surprised to hear that he had passed away at their 10-year reunion. No one knows what happened.